get good grades and test scores, and they imagine that as a doctor, for example, I might be a little more appreciated. I still remember my mother's face when I announced that I would be attending music school. But what about those high CT scores? My parents weren't really sure what the value of music was. And they loved music. They listened to classical all the time. They just weren't really clear about its modern usefulness. So let me talk to you about that a little bit. Because we live in a society that sees music as entertainment. And let me be the first to tell you that serious music has nothing whatsoever to do with entertainment. What does art pay? I'm sure those of us who appreciate art have heard that question more times than we care to remember. But one of the finest answers came in 2009, when the director of the Boston Conservatory gave the following speech to prospective parents and students. In it, he dispensed the usual defenses of why one should get a degree in music. No, he said, we are not here to merely chase money. We are not here to merely chase fame or copy fads. We are here to act upon art's highest calling, to move the spirit, to center beauty as essential, and to mark the fine-tuning of our souls as prerequisite to truly being human. Why Music Matters by Carl Palmer. One of the most profound musical compositions is the Quartet for the End of Time by Olivier Messiaen. He was captured by the Nazis in 1940. He was fortunate enough to find a sympathetic guard who gave him a place to compose, and fortunate enough to find a cellist, a violinist, and a clarinetist in camp. It was performed in front of 4,000 prisoners and guards, and today, it is one of the masterworks. Given what we've learned about life in these camps, why would anyone waste energy writing music? There was barely enough energy to find food and water, to avoid a beating, to escape a torture. Why would anyone bother? And yet, even from these concentration camps, we have poetry, music, visual arts. And this wasn't just one fanatic. Many people created art. Why? Well, in places where people only focus on the bare necessities, the obvious conclusion is that art must somehow be essential. Art is a part of the human spirit. It is the unquenchable expression of I am alive. And my life had meaning. In 2001, I was a resident of Manhattan. On the day of September 12th, I reached a new understanding of my art. I sat down at the piano at 10 a.m. to practice, as was my routine. I looked at the cover, opened my music, put my hands to the keys, and sat there, thinking, why does this matter? Given what happened yesterday, who needs a piano player? I was lost, and I, along with the rest of New York, went through the journey of getting through that week. I did not play the piano that day, and in fact, I briefly contemplated whether I would ever want to play the piano ever again. And then I observed how we got through the day. At least in my neighborhood, we didn't shoot hoops or play Scrabble. We didn't play cards to pass the time. We didn't watch TV, we didn't shop, and we most certainly did not go to the mall. The first activity on the evening of 9/11 was singing. Yes, people sang. People sang around the firehouses. People sang, "We shall overcome." Lots of people sang, "America, the Beautiful." The first organized public event that I remember was the Bronx Requiem. The first expression of our grief, our first response to that tragic, historic event was a concert. And that was the beginning of a sense that life might go on. The US military secured the airspace, but recovery was truly led by the arts, and by music in particular that very night. From these two experiences, I have learned that art is not a luxury. It is not a lavish thing that we fund from leftovers. Art is a part of survival, one of the ways we make sense of our lives, a way for us to understand things with our hearts when we can't do so with our minds. Some of you may know Samuel Barber's Adagio over the Strings. If you know that piece, you do not have the ability to crack your heart open like a walnut. It can make you cry over a sadness you didn't know you had. Music can slip beneath our consciousness to get what's really going on inside. What follows is part of the talk I will give to your children, this year's freshman class. If we were a medical school and you were here practicing as a med student, you would take your work very seriously because you imagine that someday someone is going to waltz into your emergency room at 2 a.m. and you're going to have to save their life. Well, my friends, someday someone is going to walk into your concert hall at 8 p.m. and bring you a mind that is confused, a heart that is overwhelmed, a soul that is weary. And whether they go back out whole again will depend partly on how well you do your craft. We're not here to become an entertainer, and you don't have to sell out to bring value into your craft. The truth is, being a musician isn't about dispensing a product. And I am not an entertainer. I'm a lot closer to a paramedic, a firefighter, a rescue worker, a therapist for the soul, a chiropractor who works with our insides to see if things can line up so that we can come into harmony with who we really are. Ladies and gentlemen, I not only expect you to master music, but to save the planet. If there's a chance for peace in our lifetime, I don't expect it'll come from government. I no longer expect it'll come from religion. If there is a way things should fit together, a future wave of wellness, it will have come from artists, because that is what we do, as in the concentration camps. And on the evening of 9/11, art and artists have saved us. Artists will always point the way. That is our duty and our responsibility. Welcome. It is time to embrace